So, Madam Chair, before I start and stuff, I'm doing this case a little bit different, so I do not have an initial report that was typed out for this case, pretty much because all parties are here. So I'm just going to kind of give it like a quick little brief and everything. So Molly is deceased, as we know. She actually succumbed of her injuries. They were pretty extensive internals. That's why I had Dr. Woods to write me an assessment, because the medical notes gave the information in reference to the damage, but I wanted it from a surgical point of view. So that's why she sent me the assessment. That's why I passed that forward for you guys to see that. Mr. Cahan is actually here, and he can give his side of the story of what occurred. So basically, we received the call. This happened on May 27th. That there was a report that a dachshund was severely attacked by a lab mix that ran off the property. Mind you, the property that the dog was on was the mother's property for the dog owner. They were actually having a party. The dog slipped through a gate, came out into the road, and severely attacked his dog. I'm going to let him give his side of the story. He was also bitten in a time frame of trying to separate the dogs. So he can give more insight on that. And if I need to intervene with anything, I will. Let me go ahead and give your side of the story.
You have my statement, can I look at that?
I do have your statement.
Okay, sir. I'm just going to read this because I'm not sure I can speak off my head with everything. On Monday, May 27, 2009, I took my dogs, Molly, a 13-pound miniature dachshund, and Margot, my 25-pound miniature bull terrier, for a walk in my neighborhood at the address of 7960 West Riverside Drive. A black dog came sprinting out of a gate of a fenced-in yard. I tried to pick up my dog, but was not fast enough. The black dog hit Molly, my dachshund, at full gait. Tearing into her midsection, I desperately struggled to separate the dogs. As she burrowed into Molly, I tried to separate them. As I pulled them apart, Margot and the black dog Sammy clashed. As I pulled them apart, Sammy bit my wrist, and I struggled with the dogs, at which point some people from the yard where the dog had been, came to pull Sammy off. Molly had just an incredible amount of swelling on her abdomen, and I called my wife. She picked us up. We went to the animal hospital in Annapolis. She had a puncture in her abdominal wall, and they had to do emergency surgery. When they opened her up, they found that the abdominal wall was much more than a puncture. It was a large gash, and she had a puncture in her duodenum. They had to do emergency surgery to remove the section and put her back together. There was also substantial damage to her pancreas. After the surgery, things just kind of went south because of the pancreatic damage. She developed pancreatitis. She had a lot of swelling in her abdomen and around her lungs. She deteriorated. They put her on oxygen. They did everything that they could.
It's okay. So, when I contacted the vet's office just to get some more information, and when Dr. Woods sent in her assessment, she was pretty clear. I think that basically the concerns what we were looking at was either an impact injury, or were we dealing with an actual physical with the mouth. So I just wanted to say to here, she did say that Molly did suffer a perforated duodenum and partially involution of the right limb of pancreas. They did talk about her pancreas a lot in reference to the severity of it. The severe focal injuries, in her opinion, are is consistent with the crushing injury from a bite rather than a blunt trauma, and that's what I was looking for. She's the the surgeon that actually did the procedure. I did put in that folder so you could see the radiographs and stuff to show how it opened it up, how it opened up. And per the county code, in reference to the severity and the dog succumbing of his injuries, Animal Control basically did issue a vicious order, and that's why we're here today.
Should I add something?
He'd like to add something.
Okay. In addition to the loss of the dog, the bite to my wrist, while did not shred me apart, the crushing to the wrist, I've been going to an orthopedist, and I missed a lot of work. I have nerve pain both in my hand and up my forearm, and as of next week, I'm supposed to make an appointment with a hand specialist for physical therapy, and I have my medical stuff from the orthopedist if that needs to be looked at as well.
All right. Thank you, sir. Okay. Ms. Cook.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Erin Snyder, and I'm an attorney, and I'm here on behalf of Jessica and Kevin Cook. Would it be acceptable for me to ask a few questions of Mr. Kahan before I begin?
Yes.
Yeah, you can.
Okay, thank you. Sir, how long have you lived on West Riverside Drive?
10 years.
10 years. Okay. And you're aware that Mrs. Cook is the daughter of Deborah and Jeffrey Hutt, who live at the address where this incident happened.
Yes.
Is that correct? And she's had lived there for 26 years. Isn't that correct? If you know.
I have no idea.
Have you ever met the Cooks before?
Like wave in passing, maybe.
Okay. And have you ever met the Hutts before?
Wave in passing, maybe. Not personally, no.
Okay. Was Molly wearing a body harness the day that this incident occurred?
No, she was wearing a collar.
Just a collar only? Okay. And you would agree with me, you had another dog with you that day,
Yes.
is that correct?
That is correct.
It's a white bull terrier named Margot?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And Molly was between your legs at one point during this incident, isn't that correct?
I can't specifically say exactly where Molly was when I was separating them. It was a pretty traumatic moment.
I'm sure it was. Did there come a time when you said there were two individuals that came to help, one of which was Mr. Hutt?
I could not identify, I would not be able to identify how many or who was there.
Okay.
I was busy trying to separate the dogs.
Okay. And the whole incident took a matter of maybe 30 seconds. Would you agree with me on that?
Again, it's hard for me to say.
Okay. And would you agree with me that there came a point during the incident where Sammy was actually flipped on her back and her side, and when the altercation was occurring between Margot, your white bull terrier, and Sammy, is that right?
I would say that there was a clash and I was pulling them apart. The exact positioning of the dogs are impossible for me to really, I was kicking and pushing and doing my best to separate them, so.
So you were kicking. Who were you kicking?
Oh, I was kicking the dog that was mauling my other dog, doing my best to separate them.
Okay.
Doing everything I could to pull them apart.
And Molly was still down on the ground during this time?
Well, Molly was down on the ground the entire time.
Okay.
There was no opportunity for me to pick them up while the dogs were.
Okay. And you were kicking, and would you agree with me that the Cook's dog, Sammy, lost a large chunk of her ear and was bleeding during the course of that incident?
I would agree that a portion of her ear was bitten off in the clash between the dogs.
Do you know which of your dogs bit her ear off?
Oh, that would be my bull terrier Margot, who was defending her owner and the other dog, Molly.
And when you were kicking the dogs and trying to separate them, did you use your arms and reach down to try to separate them with your hands?
Absolutely, that's when I was
Okay.
bitten by Sammy.
Okay, so Sammy didn't come at you and specifically attack you or your arm. It was during the course of your attempt to separate the dogs that your arm was bit. Is that right?
It was while separating the dogs. I don't know the animal's intent. I can't comment on that.
Sure, I understand that. And Margot didn't have any sort of injuries. We haven't heard about that, and none were reported. Is that right?
She had some some peripheral minor marks and scrapes, but nothing that needed significant medical attention.
Okay, you didn't tell animal control about that, or take any pictures of that, or get her checked out by a veterinarian?
No, all efforts were going into saving the dog that was severely injured.
Now, Molly was 12 years old, is that right?
That's correct.
And she had some other unrelated health issues that,
She did not.
so she didn't have, already have a hernia?
No, she did not.
So the medical records that talk about a right abdominal wall hernia?
That's where the right abdominal wall hernia is referring to the puncture from the dog bite, nothing that was
Are you-
pre-existing.
Are you a veterinarian, sir?
I am not.
Okay.
I'm just a good listener to when my veterinarian's talking.
Okay, so no one had ever told you previously that she had a hernia, even though it's in the medical records?
There was no medical record of a previous hernia.
Okay, and you would agree with me that Molly didn't have any obvious puncture wounds from teeth or any sort of bite to her body?
I'm gonna object. It's the medical record stated there is a puncture.
Actually, I would refer the commission to the medical report from Tuesday, May 28th. In the packet I received, it's page 1, and it says, no overt punctures. That's where I'm getting that from. And would you agree with me, sir, that Molly had no bites or obvious marking, any puncture wounds to her face? Is that correct?
No, the dog bit her on her abdomen, not her face.
Okay. You've had some complaints before about
I'm
your
gonna object. I'm gonna object, because it has nothing to do with this case. It's prior history. It's not doing, it
Thank
has
you.
nothing to do with his dog Molly.
Respectfully, if to the commission, if the complaints had to do with Margot, who was the other dog involved in this altercation, I absolutely think they are relevant. The clash was very much involving Margot. Margot bit Sammy, and I think if there's prior history with Margot, that the commission should be taking that into consideration in this hearing.
I'm gonna object because.
I don't know. I don't know how you feel, but I don't see how, we need to get to the, I don't know. Are you objecting the fact that, are you at all saying that the dog did not come off the property? Did the
I
dog
would-
come off the property? That's
We
the
would
problem now.
concede that an accident happened here and that Sammy got through a gate and came off the property. I
So
would
then-
concede to that.
Well, then I don't see how a prior incident involving another dog has anything to do with this dog. If the dog, I'm getting the names mixed up. If your larger white dog went onto your property, then maybe we have something to talk about, I would think. I don't know if anyone else agrees,
Right.
but that's how I feel about
I
it.
agree.
Seems like Sammy was the aggressor, clearly.
Well, I haven't been able to present my case. I guess I could come back to
I totally
that.
understand that, but at the same point, I see her objection. At this point,
Okay.
if, you know, if they were walking along the fence line, it's a different story. yes.
Okay, I guess I can come back to that after I establish that Margot was not innocent in this situation. We would concede Sammy got out of a fence when someone was, and got out the gate of the fence when someone was entering the property. That is, I would concede to that, but I would not concede at all that Sammy was the aggressor. Okay, I don't have any more questions of Mr. Kahan. I'm sincerely sorry for your loss, and thank you for answering my question, sir. Can I ask I don't know if Officer Thomas is done. At some point, I do have a few questions for her before I present my case.
No, you can ask questions.
Okay, I just didn't know if you were done. I didn't want to go there first. Officer Thomas, you went out to the 7960 West Riverside Drive property with Mr. Kahan, is that correct?
Correct.
And you actually drove there with him in your car, isn't that correct?
Correct.
And my clients were not contacted and weren't given an opportunity to meet with you out there, isn't that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
They don't have to, my whole objective of going out there is to see the location where it occurred.
Okay. And you didn't tell my clients that you were gonna go do that, is that true?
I'm not entitled to tell them. It's basically, it's part of my investigation is to go out there.
Okay. I'm in receipt of the pictures of the property that you provided. And it looks like you have, there's two gates on that property. Would you agree with me about that?
Correct.
There's one small gate, which would be something where a person could walk through or people, and then there's a double gate where you could potentially pull a boat or a car through. Is that correct? And the pictures that you have provided appear to show that you're saying that they came out of the double gate. Is that correct?
That's what was advised to me.
By who?
by Mr. Cahan.
Okay. Did you have an opportunity to speak to any of my client or her witnesses about
I actually
this?
had them send in statements.
Did you confirm with any of them that Sammy came out of that
It was
gate?
advised to me that they came out of that gate.
Okay.
They didn't say anything about a small gate.
Okay. And you would agree with me that Sammy had a pretty significant bite to her ear?
She did.
Okay. And when you took custody of Sammy following this incident, she was wrapped up?
Yes, she was.
Okay. And she was on medication?
Yes, she was.
Okay. And when you went out to the location and took these pictures, I'm sorry, strike that. Did you have an opportunity to speak with Mr. R.J. Kress, who's a neighbor of that of the Kahans as well as the Hutts who own the property where this happened?
The only thing that I have is basically the statements that were sent in through email from all parties that were in witness.
Okay, so you didn't speak to any of the witnesses, you just obtained the statements and put them
The
in?
only one that I actually spoke to, I believe, was Joe.
Joe, I'm sorry.
Over phone.
Okay, is that Mr.
And
Enright?
that was just to advise to get, to send in the statement.
Okay. Do you agree with me that you told my client that during the time that Sammy's been impounded by animal control, that she's a happy dog?
Of course.
Okay, so she's been pleasant and easy to deal with while she's been impounded by animal control?
Correct, but I don't judge them when they're in here.
Okay, I'm just asking you,
Yep,
I
that's
understand. And you would agree with me that there's never been any sort of complaints made against Sammy before that you're aware of?
No history.
Okay. Did you have an opportunity to examine Margot?
No.
Okay. Did you at any point observe Mr. Kahan's injury?
Only through the photographs that he submitted.
Okay. And he hasn't provided you with any medical records or paperwork as of this point, is that correct? Regarding his injury?
Right. I mean, if I felt there was need for me to, usually I don't request medicals unless I'm on a severity basis.
Okay. I don't have anything further. Thank you, Officer Thomas.
No problem.
May I approach to present you with my exhibits, please? Thank you.
Wait a minute, she can do that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thanks, Tiffany.
My first witness will be Brian Harmon. Mr. Harmon, maybe you can come sit over here. Would that be okay? Just sit closer to me.
Now, did he witness this?
Yes, ma'am. You have his written statement was provided probably by the officer. It's in your, it would not be in my packet because it's under my understanding it was provided by the officer. Mr. Harmon, I'm going to direct your attention to May 27th of 2019. Were you present at a party that was at the Hutt residence?
Yes.
Okay. And approximately, do you know what time you got there?
I honestly don't. It was probably half an hour after the party had started.
Okay. And when you got there, can you tell me what gate did you enter the property on?
I entered it at the smaller gate to the left of the garage.
Okay. And is that a single gate or a double gate?
Single.
Okay. And did you arrive with anyone else?
Yes, my wife and my friend Joey.
Okay. And when you entered the gate, could you tell the commission what happened, please, when you first entered the gate to the property?
When I first entered, I was following my friend Joey, was talking to him, not paying a whole bunch of attention, and Sammy came beside me. And before I was too far from the gate, she had slipped by me and ran out towards the street.
Were you able at that point to observe Sammy's demeanor and how she was acting?
She was just on a trot per se. I mean, her ears weren't like back, and I couldn't honestly see her face. I mean, she was just on a trot.
And what did you do when you saw Sammy, realized Sammy had gotten through the gate?
I immediately had took off after her because obviously it was my fault that she had got out of the gate.
And where did she go, if you know?
She went up to the man and his 2 dogs.
And is that Mr. Kahan, the person
Yes.
you know is Mr. Kahan?
Correct.
Okay. And what happened when she approached the dogs? What did you see happen?
The scene was very quick. He had tried to grab his smaller black dog, and immediately his white bigger dog had Sammy on the ground, and he was trying to break up Sammy and his white dog while trying to pick up his little black one by pulling on his leash. And immediately I got there as soon as I could, and I immediately had grabbed Sammy.
Okay. And where was, if you know or remember, where was his black dog when you got there?
He was in the process of trying to yank her up, per se. I would say that he almost had control of her in his hands, but not completely.
So did he at some point get her up in his arms?
Yes.
Okay. When you first got there, what was Sammy's body position for what you recall?
She was on her, not completely on her back, more so on her side, with the white dog on top of her.
So the white dog, that I believe her name is Margot, what was Margot's body position?
A stance like over top of Sammy.
Did you hear any sort of growling or barking or anything of that nature at this point?
No.
Okay. Did there come a time when you heard any growling or barking or anything that sounded in any way aggressive or angry between the dogs?
No.
Okay. What did you do when you got up there?
I immediately grabbed Sammy scruffed her by the neck and picked her straight up.
And what were you able to notice about Sammy when you did that?
That she was covered in blood. Mr. Jeff came right behind me. I handed Sammy to him because I was covered in blood, wondering if I had got bit myself.
Had you been bit?
I was not.
And when you pulled Sammy up by the scruff of her neck, can you kind of describe what you mean by that? Did you have to pull, did you pull her straight up? Did you pull her out? What happened?
I was above Sammy and I pulled her straight up.
Okay. And what did Margot do, if you know, the white dog?
He was still trying to get a hold of her.
Okay. How was he doing that, if you remember?
It's kind of like a snipping. He wasn't like lunging at me, but he wasn't walking away.
What was Margot's demeanor like, if you recall?
I'm gonna object. It sounds like we're putting more of this case on Margot and Sammy and not Molly and Sammy.
I think this is an altercation between 3 dogs. I think that the behavior of Margot is relevant to this, and
But it's also relevant to the fact that if Margot was protecting a dog that's already been bitten, now, you've not stipulated one way or the other that the dog, once again,
Sammy or
yeah,
Molly?
Sammy,
Okay.
had anything to do with this so far.
I'm-
If your contention is he had absolutely nothing to do with this injury, I think now's the time to kind of.
Well, let me ask
We need to
Mr.
get there.
Sure, Mr. Harmon, did you see Sammy bite the black dog?
I did not.
Did you see Sammy step on Mr. Kahan's black dog or throw her body on Mr. Kahan's black dog?
I did not.
Did you see Sammy touch Mr. Kahan's black dog in any way?
No.
Did you see Mr. Kahan kicking at any of the dogs?
Yes.
Do you know which dog he made contact with?
Margot, is that the white one? Sorry.
You saw him kick the white dog.
And Sammy, when they
Okay.
were together.
Did you
Around.
see if Mr. Kahan by accident may have kicked his dachshund?
I did not see it. That
Okay. Did you, after you removed Sammy from the incident where did you do when you got Sammy up?
when I got Sammy in my hands, Mr. Jeff had taken Sammy from me, and we both walked Sammy back over to her parents' yard.
Did you go back to and speak with Mr. Kahan after that?
I did.
Okay, and did there come a time when you found anything laying in the street?
Yes, when I walked back over to talk to him, I found the tip of Sammy's ear laying in the street.
I'm gonna show you this is an item in a plastic bag. Does that look like the tip of Sammy's ear?
Yes.
Is this what you found? Okay. Did you have an opportunity to speak with Mr. Kahan at that point?
I did.
What was the condition of Molly at that point?
She was sitting on the ground, just kind of shaking.
Was she bleeding?
I did not see any blood.
Did Mr. Kahan show you any bite marks or wounds on Molly?
He did not.
Okay. How long would you say you were standing there talking to Mr. Kahan at that point?
Maybe a minute.
Did you see any bite marks or wounds on Margot?
No.
Okay, and what did you do after that?
I asked him if he was okay and if his dogs were okay. He had told me that he had got bitten. Quickly showed me his forearm area with some blood on it. And then he said that his little dog wouldn't stand up. And I had looked at her and she just seemed to be shaking in fear, but it didn't seem any injuries.
Okay. At that point, what did you do?
At that point, I said sorry for the altercation and I hope everybody's okay.
Did Mr. Kahan tell you after when he talked about his bite? Did he tell you which dog he thought bit him? Or
No.
Okay. Do you remember which arm Mr. Kahan had the bite on?
I do not.
Okay. Were you injured in this incident?
I was not.
Okay. So the blood that was on you, do you know whose blood that was?
Sammy's.
Okay. And then, how long have you known Jessica and Kevin Cook?
About 13 years.
And how long have you known Sammy?
About 3.
And do you have an occasion to see Sammy on a regular basis?
Yes, I see her a couple times a week.
And do you ever go on trips with the Cooks and Sammy?
Yes, we go on camping trips with our dogs together.
Okay. Have you ever known Sammy to be aggressive or growl or do anything or cause any sort of altercation to other dogs or to other people?
No, she's in front of the dog.
And would you agree with me that Jessica and Kevin Cook are responsible when it comes to Sammy?
Absolutely.
When you've gone camping and things like that with them, do they always have her on a leash?
Yes.
Okay. And the day that this happened, it's this terrible incident from all sides. She was in a fence. She
Correct.
wasn't, and she slipped out through the gate that was opened. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do you believe that, in your experience with Jessica and Kevin Cook, that if the commission was to allow Sammy to return to their home with stipulations, that they would abide by all the stipulations that the commission imposed?
Absolutely.
Okay. And recently, you had the opportunity to help Mr. Cook, actually, is that correct? To do something at his home?
Correct.
And you two built a 6-foot fence at the Cook residence, isn't that correct?
Correct.
I'm going to show you, and the commission, you already have the pictures, but I'm just going to show you a series of pictures that I've already provided to the commission. They're under exhibit number 4, 40 to 47 of my packet. You have the black and whites. I have some color photos. Is that the new fence that you and Mr. Cook constructed?
Yes.
And you completed that on June 23rd, 2019, is that correct?
Correct.
And that fence is 6 feet high?
Yes.
And there's 2 beware of dog signs that were placed there?
Yes.
And this fence was constructed in preparation for this hearing in hopes that the commission may take that into consideration, at least to your knowledge, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Harmon. I don't have any further.
I have a question.
Okay.
So, Mr. Harmon, basically you advised what I just heard is that, when you actually got to the area where the incident was occurring with Sammy and stuff, that Mr. Cahan was kicking Molly and also kicking Margot. May I refer to the statement that Mr. Harmon did provide? This was sent in to me on May 29th. He basically stated here, as you go down to the paragraph, as I got up to Sammy, the man and his 2 dogs, he was holding his small dog and trying to step and kick Sammy off his white dog, even though Sammy was the one pinned to the asphalt. So I just wanted to reiterate and stuff, is that how could you see somebody kicking a small dog when even in your own statement stated that the dog was in his arms? Just wanted to clarify.
My next witness would be Debbie Hutt, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, I had a follow-up.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Mr. Harmon.
So along those lines, so Sammy gets out of the gate and then you run up to him and Mr. Kahan where the 3 dogs are, is that right?
Correct.
Is it fair to say there was a delay between you running, or the dog getting loose and getting up to those other 2 dogs and you getting to that scene?
By the time I realized what she was doing, I was at the gate. I mean, she was only from me to you away. I mean, that's
Okay.
seen her as soon as she moved.
You had testified that you didn't see Sammy attack Molly, right?
Molly's the black dog.
Molly's the little
Right,
dot.
correct.
You didn't see that. But is it possible that it happened prior to you getting to that scene?
Possible.
Okay. That's all. That's all. my question. Thank you.
No problem.
Just in follow-up to the officer's questions, you indicated that the scene where the dogs were is the distance from you to the officer, is that right?
No, I was saying that that's how far she was when I started running after her.
Okay.
The distance was,
When you saw Sammy escape or get through the gate, how long till you turned and went out the gate?
a second.
Okay, and how long when you were seeing the scene, how long till you got to the scene of the altercation from when you went out the gate, would you say?
3, 4 seconds. 4
Okay.
seconds probably.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Harmon.
What are you asking the commission to do?
I'm going to be asking the commission to downgrade this vicious finding to either dangerous or potentially dangerous. Sammy has no prior history. I've provided you with over 30 letters of support in favor of Sammy. The Cooks have built a 6-foot fence at their home. They don't live at that 7960 West Riverside Drive address. They would be willing to, if necessary, not to take Sammy back to that address, even though it's Mrs. Cook's mother and father's home. I've also provided you with a statement from Sammy's veterinary technician about her behavior every time she's been in the vet office. I've provided you with documentation of Sammy's injury. This is an unfortunate incident. There's no doubt about that. The Cooks are devastated not only at the thought of losing their own dog, but for Mr. Kahan and the fact that his dog, it's terrible. There's no good way. I know the commission doesn't, I won't go into another argument because at this point the commission hasn't found it relevant, and I certainly don't want to turn this, my intention in bringing up Margot was not to anger anyone or to hurt anyone. It's simply in defense of my clients and Sammy. This was a very sad incident. I don't believe that by taking Sammy's life, it's going to bring Mr. Kahan's dog back. I have known the Cooks a long time, and they have gone above and beyond to prepare for this hearing in an effort to get their dog back. And I know that they will abide by whatever the commission determines as restrictions in making sure nothing like this ever happens again. I know that the commission's time is precious. I have several other witnesses that will corroborate that they're good dog owners, they're responsible, law-abiding people. They have taken every effort possible to, prepare for this hearing in knowing, I obviously did my research. I know that what the type of stipulations that the commission could put forth upon them or would likely do, and they are trying to get all that in line. And I just think that this is an unfortunate incident. Clearly something happened to Molly. We're not disputing that, but there were no overt puncture wounds to Molly. There is, other than Mr. Kahan, I have another witness here that saw the incident as well, Mr. Kress. You have his written statement, and and I would ask you while you deliberate to make sure if you're not inclined to hear from him today, to look at that statement. He says that when Sammy came out of the gate, she was happy. Her tail was wagging. She was ready to play. And she was running towards the dog that Jake, who would be Mr. Kahan, was walking down the street. He does say that one of them must have growled or nipped. He does not say that it was Sammy. But Sammy was still wagging her tail at this point. We concede she was not on a leash and she got out of the gate. All the dogs, he says, were in an aggressive manner. They were all 3 biting and growling, would be Mr. Kress's statement. And he talks about stopping the fight, and he says that Mr. Kahan was hitting and kicking both dogs to get them to stop. And that's, so there's a lot, he's a neighbor, he's not a family friend, he wasn't
And
at
he
the
should be
party.
here, he should be
I
here.
am.
He is here, he is
Okay.
here, I just
And
wanted,
I'm willing to hear whatever you guys want to hear. You can ask me whatever questions. I've known Jacob for years. I've known the Hutt family for years. I have no reason to lie. I'm an innocent bystander that's in the middle of this. That would just seem to have it happen. I talked to Jake after. I've talked to the Hutts after. You can ask me any question, and I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I have no reason to lie. Like I said, I know both parties involved. I'm a middle neighbor right in between. So any questions you guys want to
Are you
ask?
sworn in?
Please ask. Yes,
He's
sir.
sworn.
Yes, sir, I was. So I'm here to answer whatever questions may need, and I'm going to be very truthful.
Did you see the entire incident start?
Yes, I've seen every step of it, unfortunately.
Could you tell us what happened, please?
I was at the Hutt's residence talking with Mr. Hutt. This gentleman here, I don't even know his name, was walking in. When he walked in, Sammy went out. Sammy went out, like I said, more so in a playful manner. When she met Jacob's dogs, I'm sorry, I have a hard time remembering his last name, but when they met Jacob's dogs, they just instantly went at one another. It seems like I never saw the black dog get hit. However, I don't know if it did get hit because, like I said, I was talking to Mr. Hutt. When I heard the barking and the growling, I heard up and I looked over the same as Mr. Hutt did. Upon doing so, I saw Jake going to grab his dog and pull his dog up and trying to separate the two dogs, just as I said in my statement. In obviously a defense mode of some sort for his dogs, both of his dogs. He was kicking and pushing and punching, trying to get them separated. He was defending his dogs. They were worried about their dog. I get that. However, at the end of the day, it was an unfortunate incident that happened. I never saw the black dog get hit, bit, anything like that. I didn't see Sammy jump on the white dog jump on Sammy. I just saw the two of them fighting at one another, and then he, like he said, he ran out, he grabbed the dog up, and he picked the dog up and took it over to its owner and handed it over the double fence, not the single fence, because Sammy came out of the single fence. And upon doing so with that, everybody started checking their dogs out. Jake was checking his dog out, Kevin was checking his dog out, and everybody was just making sure their dogs were fine. I don't really know what happened with Jake's dog. I really don't know what happened with Sammy. I don't know who bit what bit who. Honestly, it would be hard for anybody to determine that with it all happening right then and there. However, I do know that maybe the black dog did get hit by the white dog, or the black, or Sammy, or Jake. I don't
Speculation.
know. But what I do know is that I've seen Sammy before and I've seen Jake's dogs before. I walk my dogs in that neighborhood. I've never seen none of the dogs show in an aggressive manner. So with this being said, like I said, I think this is a miscommunication when you have two different kind of dogs come up to meet one another. They both show an aggression and then it just being an accident. That's what I truly think happened. I don't think Jake's dogs are out there vicious trying to kill other dogs in the neighborhood, and I know Sammy isn't because I've seen Sammy over Miss Debbie's house before. So with that being said, I just think it was honestly a mistake. I think it was just an accident. I don't think that any dog should be put down. I don't think that any dog should be deemed vicious or terrible or this or that. But like I said, I'm just an innocent bystander. I'm a complete neutral party to this whole situation because I have to live in the neighborhood with both these people and I want to tell the truthful story. So that's where I'm at with it. Any more questions for me?
I have a question for
Officer.
Jacob. No, Jacob. Had you met Sammy before?
No.
Your dog ever, neither of these dogs had ever encountered Sammy before?
No.
Okay. And your two dogs, how long have they lived together?
Well, Margot is going to be 3, so my dogs have been together since
For
we
3
brought-
years, okay.
For 3 years, yeah.
I'd like to ask a question. It said you adopted your dog from a different family. Who did you adopt her from?
It's one of my brother's friends. They just didn't have time with the dog anymore, so they wanted to go to a good home, and we were kind of looking for a dog at that point, so we took her in. I think she was like 1 year, almost a year old at the time we took her in.
you, Ms. Wayne, there's letters from the first family that had Sammy in the letters of support. I don't know if
That's
you've
what I'm
seen.
reading.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you were aware. We got those. There's also letters from neighbors of the Cooks in their address on Carroll Drive in Pasadena, and letters from other neighbors of the Hutts on West Riverside Drive, talking about seeing Sammy there previously and never having a problem with Sammy and their dogs, and her never being aggressive.
What I am asking is
Yes,
that
ma'am.
you adopted her because they didn't have time to fool with her, right?
They were going through a really bad divorce.
I'm sorry, couldn't
They
hear
were
you.
going through a bad divorce.
Okay. So you're not aware of any situation that Sammy had?
No, she never had any. And she wrote those in the statements that too.
Sammy was quite young. How old was?
I don't think she was
She
even
wasn't
a year
even,
yet.
no, she
Yeah.
wasn't quite two.
It was like a couple years now. She wasn't even a year, I don't think.
It was November.
Was there another dog in that family?
No.
No.
Okay. I'm just trying to
Sure.
establish something, okay?
And you'll see also through the letters of support that the cooks have had her around several other dogs, not just neighbors' dogs, as well as in settings. And in the pictures, you'll see that they've taken her places like Home Depot, and there's never been any sort of altercation or incident. She's around children all the time. Mrs. Cook was actually the nanny to my 2 children for over 3 years, and Sammy was around at the time my 6-month-old and my 3-year-old with autism, and I've never seen her be aggressive. All that being said, we certainly understand this is serious, and our heart breaks for Mr. Kahan and his dogs, or his dog, both dogs.
Did Sammy charge her 2 dogs?
Yes. And the argument being made that the dog didn't run out aggressively and didn't put its mouth on my dog is absurd and it's offensive. It's offensive. And I'm a dog lover. I've loved dogs all my life, and I've had dogs all my life. And the idea of a dog being euthanized is horrible and horrifying. But it's a public safety issue. It just so happens that as I told my kids to go take the dogs out on Memorial Day, I said, you know what, it's a beautiful day, I'll take my dogs out. But had my 9-year-old and my 6-year-old, either one of them been taking the dogs out, which we have the right to do in our neighborhood, walking on the street, had one of them been walking my dogs, instead of me just being bitten and needing to go to orthopedist, my kids would be having reconstructive facial surgery. And whether or not the dog hadn't shown it before is all irrelevant. It's irrelevant because we were going for a walk and the people weren't managing their property and the dog bolted out and attacked us. And I can appreciate that the people didn't see what occurred because they weren't paying attention to what was happening. They were a step behind. And I'll acknowledge that my dog hurt that other dog, but my dog was defending itself, defending its owner, defending the other dog. The argument is like saying if an attacker on the street attacked your wife, you wouldn't attack the person that was attacking your wife or attacking your brother or anything like that. She didn't do anything wrong. She did what she was supposed to do. And I did my best to separate the dogs. I did my best. And the fact that Molly didn't have external, like breaking of the skin doesn't undo what was done on the inside of her. She was a 12-pound dog for a much bigger pound dog. The dog grabbed her and tore into her. And we wouldn't be sitting here right now had my dog not died from this. And I appreciate everyone's side of the story, but it's just absurd. It's absurd to say, to insinuate that somehow it was a pre-existing condition, or insinuate that I stepped on my dog and I killed my dog, which is what they're trying to try to make the argument of. It's absurd.
Yeah, and I mean, in retrospect of the owners and stuff, and whatever decisions are made here, if with interviewing everyone and basically sending their statements in and stuff, the only one I spoke on the phone was Joseph, and advising him to send in a statement and stuff, and he literally clearly put in there Sammy was running at full speed. When Dr. Woods gave her assessment, she was talking about that this was not a blunt force trauma, that this basically was rather from a bite. And could it happen? And could it, maybe not break the skin? Yes, it can. We've seen this many, many times before, and even coming in front of you board members. And whatever we decide to do today, everybody's objective, including Mr. Kahan, in many conversations him and I had, was, to protect the public. That's why we're here.
Yep.
How much does Margot weigh?
Margot was 25 pounds.
How much does Sammy weigh?
She's usually around 50 pounds, but her last weigh-in was at animal control, and I can't say exactly what that was.
I can tell you.
So between the 2 dogs, their dog was still bigger. So it would have been okay if Margot would have been chewed up, then,
No,
And Sammy's not huge. She's not a very large, dog. I mean,
pounds, it's exhibit E.
yeah, I guess from when she was weighing in, you know, she's not like really big.
respectfully, in no way am I trying to offend Mr. Kahan or the commission. I'm just certainly acting as an advocate for my clients. My clients are devastated by this, and in no way are they trying to, frankly, place blame anywhere. They're trying to save their dog, their first baby, her life. That's all that's happening here. So I don't want anyone to take offense to my arguments as an advocate and use that against Sammy. I'm just simply being an advocate for my clients, and I would be remiss in not pointing out some of the potential other ways that this could have happened.
Excuse me, this is not a baby, this is a dog.
I understand that, but
Okay,
that's how
stop.
they see her. I understand that, ma'am. I don't mean to be offensive. I just, I can certainly
I
understand
have a
that.
dog too, she's my dog, that's
Yes.
it.
We understand that, but that's how they feel about her. And I'm sure Mr. Kahan feels that way about his dogs. I don't want to take that away. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Mr. Cook had something to add, if that would be
I
okay.
just want to put on behalf of my dog, we understand the severity of the situation, we're very sorry. We've been upfront from the beginning, like the next day, we filed a claim with our homeowner's insurance just to try to, get everything resolved. A dog's not vicious. I take my dog everywhere. She's been camping on the Eastern Shore, down to Ocean City with me. She's been to Home Depot. She's been to Lights and Leashes with thousands of other dogs at Sandy Point. I take this dog everywhere. Like, she's never shown any aggression. She's been around countless kids too. All my friends have kids. They pull on her tail, pet her. She doesn't show aggression. I just think this was truly an accident. My dog is not vicious. It just, we're very sorry what happened, and I wish we could take it all back. But I mean, we're not irresponsible dog owners. I mean, she just happened to slip out of the gate. She was in a fenced-in yard. I mean, she's not vicious. I mean, we even had a pet rabbit she used to run around the house with. She's never attacked anything, never growled at a kid, nothing. No other dogs. Like I said, she's been around. My parents have 4 dogs. She's always over their house running around with their dogs, and they got a fenced-in yard. Her mother, they have a dog where this happened. They also have a dog that she runs around with all the time. I mean, yeah, she's just not a vicious dog. This was just an unfortunate accident. And we're willing to do anything to try to get a second chance with our dog. Like I said, we already built a 6-foot wooden fence around our whole property that fences in our door to go into the house. So if she used to get out the door, she's in a fenced-in yard. We hung beware dog signs on the gates already. We're just willing to do, we got cameras. We're willing to do anything just to have a second chance with our dog. We don't believe she should be put down over this. It was truly an accident.
They had a run for her before, but they've gone ahead and fenced in at their personal property that run. And like Mr. Cook said, and I do have color photos if the commission would like to see them, the black and whites are in your packets. It fences in the entire home, so the front door, she could never run out. She'd be in a fence.
Self-shutting gates.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the gates have spring hinges on them, so they're self-shutting. So there's no chance of them getting left open. They shut them themselves by themselves.
And
We
if,
just ultimately want a second chance with our dog. We understand the severity of what happened, and we're very sorry. We've been on top of things from the beginning. Like I said, like the next day, we filed a claim with our homeowner's insurance to try to, I know he's got vet bills and everything else. We're trying to get all that resolved as well. We haven't been like, no, we're not going to handle anything. We've been upfront from the beginning. We're just ultimately trying to get a second chance with our dog.
if necessary, they'll agree not to take her to that address where this Mr. Kahan's neighborhood.
Honestly, at this point, she's probably not going to go anywhere. I mean, because she's just going to stay at the house. I mean, I know this is an accident, but, she's going to stay at the house. She's not going to go anywhere unless she needs to go to the vet. And like I said, we understand that she might need a leash, muzzle, and everything else when she goes out, and that's perfectly fine. We're willing to do that. We just ultimately want a second chance with her. She's never had any incidents in the 3 years we've had her. Nothing. And like I said, she's been around countless kids, countless other dogs.
Anything else to add?
No, I can just provide color photos if you'd like, or if the black and whites are sufficient, that's fine too, whatever the commission would like.
Black and whites are fine.
Thank you.
You want to say something? Oh, yeah.
Are we ready to deliberate?
We'll close to public participation. They're in open deliberations.
I mean, my feeling is, so far, I don't think anyone saw what actually happened except for the complainant. I think that the initial contact is what we're here to talk about, because I don't, if it happened that quick and everything turned into a scrum after that, it's hard to say. Anyone that was at that party could have easily missed that initial contact, and even to the man who said he was first on the scene, he shot out, said there was a possibility that dog could have been bitten. That all being said, I don't think I've ever seen as many letters of support and people show up and as much as already been completed. Being aware of the order and know what's going on there too. So I do have some questions. I mean, you looked at the medical records. I mean, I want to defer to you. I mean, what do you think about it?
Well, Dr. Woods does mention that there is a perforation in the duodenum, so that blunt trauma can cause a hernia through the abdominal wall and those kinds of internal injuries, but her medical opinion, which I believe, is that she believed it to not be consistent with blunt trauma, but be a crushing injury. So that does build the case that there was an initial bite that didn't break the skin, but crushed internal organs. So that is what they believe happened based on opening the dog up and looking internally. So there's a significant bite wound that did end in Molly's death. And that is extremely sad and unfortunate. And we're very sympathetic to that. I'm so sorry. So I do believe, like you said, and it's hard to see that scuffle, what happened. Something happened. And people will punch, kick. I mean, we get it. It's the initial fight, taking dogs apart. You just don't know what to do. The adrenaline, you're trying to break them apart. So that happens, but it seems unlikely that that was what happened to Molly. So going forward from there, what do we do with Sammy? It is a very unfortunate accident, but I will say, they have done a lot to try to save their dog's life. I believe they would be, their dog will never be out of their house without a basket muzzle on for the rest of its life. If we downgraded it to a dangerous dog order, I'd be willing to consider that as
I mean, it's kind of...
It could never happen again with the dog not slipping out.
I mean, that's how I kind of see it.
If we ever, so, I'd be willing. Any thoughts?
Similar thoughts. I mean, obviously, it's a tragedy all the way around, as always in these cases, and it's, fights like this, they happen extremely fast. Everybody's adrenaline is going, the people and the dogs. There's not a lot of thinking. There's a lot of doing, not a lot of thinking on everybody's part, including the dogs. There's potential of opposition reflex in this case. No history on the dog. They've done a lot already, as you said. I think the chances of it happening again would be low. I think it's a very difficult, because we're in a situation where there's a loss, a big loss. But I think the chances of it happening again under the circumstances of the dangerous dog order are probably low, very, very low.
Officer Thomas, what would you think of your opinion? I don't know.
I say it to you guys all the time, understanding that this is pretty tragic, it does meet that vicious code. However, this is your field right here, right?
You haven't had the opportunity to look at any of this fence work or anything like that, right?
No.
Right.
I spoke to the cooks about it briefly. They did advise me what they were going to do. Our objective is always want a dog to succeed. And understanding I don't have any history on Sammy. Obviously we need to uphold public safety. Right. We're standing firm with our decision because based upon the situation and the tragedy, and the outcome of this. However, because it does meet the vicious code, it's basically going to be your ultimate decision of what you feel is best suited for this case. because we need to prevent it. I mean, if there's a chance that you obviously allow, you know, a dangerous order or the vicious order to be lowered to a dangerous, you know, this stipulations need to be in place. Because I can't have her coming out, I mean, you know, statements in this file that stated she was running at full speed. And that is a concern. Whether, you know, this was 100% aggressive or whether this was, you know, I'm not sure saying playful, but we still have a substantial injury to the point where the dog lost its life.
Right.
And obviously we do not want to repeat at all.
Having said that, you know, I mean, it's not, we have to look at all the circumstances and, you know, the end result here is tragic, but it's not, we have to, our duty for the code is to look at all the mitigating circumstances. And an eye for an eye is just not, it's not in our, you know, that's not the point of why we're here. We have to look at everything.
I agree, you look at responsible dog ownership, you look at what's already been taken care of, and in this situation, you know, there was some irresponsibility with the dog. I mean, if there's any concern of the dog getting out, that should, you know, it's obviously a terrible lesson to have to learn, but, like I said, I mean, I've been going through as many of these as I can read. I mean, like I said, I don't think I've ever seen this many letters of support, in one situation. Seems like a lot of people have had contact with this animal and has never had any issue. I mean, it's a lot of times we see 3, 4, 5 of these, and that's that, and some people here. I mean, I don't know. Larry, do you have anything to say?
I'm torn here because, as Officer Thomas had said, the dog was at a full speed, aggressively going after this man's dogs. And that, I can't change that. You know, I don't know what triggered it, but that's frightening to me. And even though you have put up a fence, if you brought another dog inside that fence, would this dog possibly attack another dog within the fence?
My dog's been around so many other dogs. I mean, like I said, this is just an unfortunate accident. But I take her to my parents all the time. They've got 4 different dogs.
Are you asking them a question or are you just stating?
I was asking him a question.
Yeah, like I said, but she's been around so many other dogs. We understand the severity of this situation. We're very sorry, but my dog's been around so many other dogs, and she's never had she's never been aggressive, never anything. Like I said, my parents have 4 dogs, and I pick up my daughter every day, and I usually take my dog with me, and she plays with her 4 dogs all the time. I mean, we introduced my daughter when she was 3 days old to my dog. She just sniffed her. I mean, that's all that happened.
Yep.
She's not an aggressive dog, and we'll do anything.
Right. I guess, you know, to follow up, I don't know what triggered this. Obviously, your dog was the aggressor. I mean, clearly. It was running at full speed, attacked and killed another dog. I don't know what.
I'm not sure either.
No, you can't. No, we're not. I'm very torn here. I can see both sides. I mean, you appear to be reasonable dog owners, responsible dog owners, but at the same time, we have a situation here where this poor man was bit. I mean, his dog was killed, and what provoked it, we have no idea. So how do you know if you can prevent it in the future?
I'm concerned with the young gentleman that spoke up when you said you came in and you knew Sammy shouldn't have been going out that gate. You reached down to get a hold of the dog. You were following her. And you said she started out happy-go-lucky. You couldn't see her face. You couldn't see her body movement. But you looked down and you knew you had to get her. That concerns me. So that tells me maybe she should have been back here with all the other people. Okay, I'm just saying that. That's what you told us. So that's the only thing I'm telling you. Yeah, you did. So we'll have to go with that.
In a dangerous order, are we allowed to stipulate that a dog can be banned from a specific address? Like, is that a past practice?
I think based on the meeting we had last night, we can do whatever we want. It's just a matter of what the police chief will accept.
Approves.
So, I think that's kind of where we are, but
I'm not opposed to a dangerous order with all of the
Sure.
standard stipulations that we see in it, the double gated entrances and everything. I wouldn't go for anything less than what is seen in a standard dangerous order.
no, I think
I
that's
think they would follow it,
I do too.
which is the only
And it
reason
seems
why
like
I
they've
would
started
remotely
to.
consider it.
And I think that the condition of either a behavioral assessment or specialized training should be included,
Sure.
or both.
Agreed.
Have you had any formal training with this dog?
No, we not formal. I mean, we trained her with a shock collar and everything. She normally wears. She knows sit, stay, and everything else. But like I said, we weren't in the immediate vicinity when she slipped out of the gate.
Understand.
That's, should we make a motion?
Yeah, right.
No, did you make it?
An
Oh, you wanna
assessment.
make the motion?
This one, 11 and 12.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, I'm ready to move. I guess I'll move to, you know, drop this to a dangerous order. What's the language for the,
With all the conditions including.
yeah, with with the standard, you know,
Do you want?
yeah, like, with the
It's-
training, what's the
it's,
wording there?
Just the letters, it's 12.4.403, B, conditions, numbers 11 and 12.
Numbers 11 and
Behavioral
12.
assessment for the animal and specialized training for the animal. Doesn't specify, you know, any of the details, but I think that we can keep it that way,
Okay.
you know, but
So-
put it in there.
Yeah, so adding those two stipulations for specialized training and, let's get-
Behavioral assessment.
behavioral assessment. That's my motion.
I would also like to add to that, to ban the SAMI from the parent's address in Pasadena.
Okay, I'm on board with that. So I guess we need a new motion then.
Right. Okay.
Here you-
Take a stab at it, let's see.
All
You
right.
wanna do it again?
All right, so the motion is now on the table to drop this to a dangerous order with stipulation 11 added for behavioral assessment, and then also for specialized training, number 12, and then to prohibit Sammy from the parent's address.
I second that motion.
I'm gonna uphold the vicious order.
We'll wait to vote on this.
Hmm?
to vote on the
Vote
current
on their
motion.
motion.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
So we have a second, we have to vote.
I'll
Say
call
all in
the
favor?
vote.
All in favor?
Opposed?
Opposed?
So this will be a recommendation to the chief of police.
Thank you.
Okay?
You receive a letter, the chief of police has 15 days to make a to uphold or overturn their recommendation.
May I ask a question? If he upholds the order, will there be directions about the specialized training? I just know my clients will want to comply appropriately. Would it be a situation where maybe the behavioral assessment would recommend if training is needed and what type of training? I just think it's vague and I want to make sure that they're able to comply with it.
We'll give them a list.
You'll give it, okay,
Yep.
thank you.
We actually will stay in contact with them.
Sure, okay, thank you very much.
You want your,
I can take them back if you want me to, or you can all keep them. If you don't want the paper, I can certainly take them back.